Right now, each of us is hurtling towards the moment when we will die. Is there a parachute that can save us from the ultimate end of that death? And have we focused on the wrong things, the gadgets and entertainments of this world, and distracted ourselves from the real task at hand? Life is but for a moment, but eternity is forever.
Time goes on and on. We can't stop it. It never stops. It starts the minute we're born. And it just keeps on going. There's nothing we can do about it. You're going to die, Alan. Do you know you're going to die?
Are you afraid of death?
Yeah.
Me too. And there's no way out of it. You're going to die. And what difference does it make if it's tomorrow or in 80 years? Much sooner in your case.
No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path. One that we all must take.
I have no intention of dying. Good. I'm going to live forever or die in the attempt. That's the only intelligent thing to do.
As Dr. Leary found out only a few years later, the mortality rate for humans remains 100%. Each one of us, from the smallest to the greatest, will die. And then there are those rare moments when its wings beat with such insistence that the whole world seems to stop, and the fragile facade we erect to hide ourselves from its terrors is shattered. 9/11 was just such an exclamation point, leaving millions to cast about for real answers to life's big questions. We need to consider this abyss now, while there's still time to prepare for the journey. It's irrational to avoid, as millions seem content to do, these profound questions, to, as one great philosopher put it, run heedlessly into an abyss after putting something, by which he meant the mundane things of life, in front of us to stop us from seeing it. To brush the thought aside and instead spend our lives chasing shadows or hiding behind ill-proven assumptions about these matters is not just ignorance. It's short-sightedness bordering on insanity.
Do you believe in the survival of human personality after death?
Each one of us will leave everything behind and walk empty-handed and alone through death's portal and into what? Over the last half-century, we've seen an explosion of alternative spiritual views enter the mainstream. Millions now turn to fortune tellers, psychics, and spiritual guides in an attempt to find answers or to soften the loss brought about by death.
You are about to experience what millions have witnessed. John Edward reunites people in the physical world with those who have crossed over.
I have probably communicated with hundreds of thousands of energies on the other side. It's freaky.
Millions more actively pursue a personal and unmediated interaction with the realm of the supernatural.
And I'm a spiritualist. What I'm going to teach you in this video program is a way to contact spirits. And when I talk about spirits, I mean angels and people who have died and crossed over to the other side.
All around us, and notably this includes the scientifically advanced first world, we see all manner of interest in arcane, primitive, and even occult forms of spirituality. Shamanism, witchcraft, neo-paganism, Satanism, ancient Egyptian religion, and a cornucopia of spiritual paths that fall under the rubric of the New Age have influenced, if not downright captured, the hearts and minds of millions of people who are seeking to break on through to the other side.
The light of the candle and I were one. I was the light.
The demon is a liar. He will light to confuse us. But he will also mix lies with the truth to attack us. Remember that. Do not listen.
Sure, individual humans, and even groups of them, are capable of believing all manner of goofy things that we can write off as deception, wishful thinking, human quirkiness, or the ingestion of too many drugs.
The inhabitants of Mars were not black people. They were a mixture of all the colors together, so they were sort of a red-yellow race.
And how do you know?
And they had blonde hair because I was there.
I've had regressions back into like 5 million BC.
There were several telltale signs that show that you might have had contact with extraterrestrial beings.
This is a picture of my extraterrestrial husband. His name is Talat.
I'm Jack Houck, and I teach psychokinesis.
This is the sound that comes through me that I believe is of another dimension.
But we're not talking here about some marginal, cult-like belief system. The vast majority of all people, in all places and in all times, have believed in some form of a spiritual world, as well as in the continuation of life after death. The next big issue becomes finding the way to this other country. Yes, most people, regardless of time and culture, believe it exists. But at this point, the agreement stops. There are more religions explaining the country and how to get there than one can count, all saying things that contradict each other. How can one hope to ever truly know the way? Well, this tough question actually has a very simple answer. Yes, it's true that there are more prophets, preachers, gurus, Dalai Lamas, ascended masters, metaphysicians, and enlightened teachers than one can count. But when it comes to the central issue of a person who has passed beyond the membrane that exists between this world and the next, who has journeyed to this other country and then returned, the field is suddenly narrowed to just one man. It's no accident that Jesus is the single most known, respected, and loved person the world has ever known. Even people who reject his divinity still almost universally respect him as a great man and a model of virtue. It's also no accident that time has been literally split in two by his incarnation. His miracles, wisdom, love, sacrificial death, bodily resurrection, and ascension into heaven were all seen by eyewitnesses who later testified to the reality of these things when they chose martyrdom over denying that the resurrection really happened. This last point is worth dwelling on for a moment.